Hi all, welcome. So happy that you're here. We're going to wait for other folks to join us as they're joining into the WebEx. So just give us a minute before we get started. Plan to get started in about a minute. Okay, good afternoon. I think we can get going. So grateful that folks are able to join us. I'm Rachel Warino, Communications Director for California Teachers Association. Before we get started with our program today, I just wanted to give a couple quick announcements. So first of all, this is a webinar format. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to use the Q&A function during the program. We'll do our best to answer in real time or at the end of the press conference. And if we don't get to your question during the press conference, we'll be sure to follow up with you after we have your contact information. And also, in addition, there's going to be several reports mentioned as well as materials. We will email them out to journalists who RSVP'd to the press conference after the press conference is over. So you will be getting those. In addition, this is being live streamed to our CTA YouTube page. So you can always view this later there too, if that's helpful for you. With that, I'd like to welcome CTA President David Goldberg to kick this off today. David, floor is yours.
Hey, welcome everyone. And yes, I'm president of CTA, and I'm also a third-generation teacher. And like many of my fellow educators, we're really committed to our public schools for the long haul. In fact, I'm also parents of students who never got resources back after devastating cuts during our Great Recession. So I'm bringing multiple perspectives today and a commitment to doing really whatever it takes for our students. And before we get into this press conference, I want to acknowledge the onslaught of attacks on public education and our communities coming out of the Trump administration. These executive orders with express purpose to harm and threaten our students and families with mass deportations, attack on our LGBTQ plus students, and erode funding for public education. And today we're hearing more and more about talks of dismantling the Department of Education, rolling back rules to protect schools in sensitive areas from ICE raids. So it's clear our collective power, our collective determination to fight for public education and our students has never been more vital. And there's going to be some big national struggles around a lot of this stuff that's coming our way. But in California, we're going to fight back against attacks on public education and do whatever it takes to protect our students from harm. And we're also not going to lose focus because we have work to do right here in our school districts, in our communities across California. So today I'm proud to welcome fellow union educators and leaders who are going to talk about a powerful and exciting campaign that's launching across California today. It's called the We Can't Wait campaign. We're also going to be hearing today from Volma Volsi, a parent in Sacramento, and from an esteemed senior economist, Dr. Sylvia Allegretto, from the Center for Economic Policy and Policy Research, about a new report and study, California Teacher Pay, Decades of Falling Behind. Now, I don't say this lightly. We are facing a crisis in our public schools. There are not enough educators on our school campuses. California ranks in the bottom 5 of states for class size ratio. We rank 48th in the nation for access to school counselors. The resources we do have are constantly under attack and threats of cuts. As shared earlier this month in our State of California Schools report, that we included survey data of nearly 2,000 educators from throughout the state, that educators are stretched thin. We have thousands of vacancies across California, and 4 out of 10 educators are considering leaving the profession in the next few years. And the vast majority cite financial strain as a primary cause. This is compounded for newer educators. And it is shameful that 4 out of 5 educators can't afford to live near their school, and the pay gap between TK to 12 educators in California and other professions requiring a college degree continues to grow even wider and wider. And this is all happening in the 5th largest economy in the world. And yet California ranks in the bottom half of states for pupil spending. Again, this is not the 5th largest state. If we were our own nation, we have the 5th largest economy in the world. And yet the disconnect from that and the constant defunding and disinvestment in education over decades is just devastating. So if we don't act now on behalf of California students, educators, and school, when will the time be right? We can't wait any longer. So today is a powerful moment for California and for our labor movement. 77,000 educators in 32 school districts, from San Diego to Los Angeles, from Sacramento and the Bay Area, and many in between, are all coming together throughout the state to demand a better future for their students. This is a new and exciting kind of campaign for our statewide union. Together, these educators serve over 1 million students, and the majority are low-income English language learners or youth in foster care. And what's at stake? Across these 32 school districts, there are $22.8 billion in revenues every year. In the press kit that we'll send around to folks on the call, we have a full list of those districts too. So this is about educators working together with parents, students, and community, raising common issues and refusing to accept excuses. And for the first time, aligning shared demands and union contract expiration dates. That's never happened before across districts. And they're driving a hard bargain with school districts and fighting for increased resources for our students. And they believe that can force change now. And together, we're demanding that every school district prioritize fully staffed schools, competitive wages and benefits to recruit and retain quality educators, and safe and stable schools where every child can learn and thrive. We can't wait for Washington to get its act together for the next election. And we can't wait because California students deserve better. And now I'd like to welcome Dr. Sylvia Allegretto from the Center for Economic and Policy Research to share her latest report on the California educator wage gap.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and thanks everybody for joining. I have a PowerPoint that's going to be put up here in a second, I believe. If all goes well. Let me just start, though, by saying, while they get this up. No, here we go. So hopefully everyone can see this. I've been writing about and researching the issue of teacher pay for over 20 years. It started my career when I was at full-time out of grad school at the Economic Policy Institute in DC, and now I'm at CEPR, also a think tank in DC. I never thought I'd have to keep revisiting. Every once in a while, my partner back then, Larry Michelle, and I would revisit, and we'd see things would get a little bit worse. Things would get a little bit worse. And so what we found, obviously, is that the long-term trends in the US and California, as well as the recent trends, are very troubling. And that's what this report shows. I'm going to just give some of the top line results and some of my thoughts on them. And if you have questions, we can get to them. Let me just say, this report is a deep dive into California. So I'm only looking at public school teachers in California, and I'm comparing them to other college grads. That's other college graduates with at least a BA degree of workers in California. So it's very California specific. Another thing to note is that I'm only looking at elementary school, middle school, and secondary teachers, meaning there's no pre-K or kindergarten teachers here. I do this to take a conservative view. If I actually put them in the data set, even just kindergarten teachers, things would look actually much worse. So I'd like to start out looking at one of my favorite graphs from this paper. Well, as far as whenever we see, if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, whenever you see a cross in data, even something very simple like this as an average weekly wages, as an economist, you kind of think that there must be a story there. And there is a big story here in this graph. In California today, about 70% of teachers are women. Again, keeping in mind there's no pre-K and K, or that share would actually be higher. This figure is simply showing the average weekly wage. So this is not what I call the teacher pay gap. These are just simple differences, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But what it's showing that compared to other college graduates in California, that teachers early on used to make more on average, these are just average weekly wages, than other college graduates, female college graduates in the state. My long-term work on this that goes back to the 1960 decennial census also shows this in the US. But what happens is around the early 1990s, and let me just say really quickly, it's not all that important because it doesn't change anything, but every data point here is actually a 5-year average to make sure I have enough data to do regression analysis, which we're going to go through next. I simply analyzed 5-year increments of data, and that's what that is. So we see this cross around the early mid to late 1990s. The years on the axis are the middle point of the 5-year spans. This is all in the paper if you want to see it. But basically, we see that teachers did very well, right? Why did they do well? And these are average weekly wages of women and other college grads in the state of California, inflation adjusted, right? Inflation adjusted. So we see that women did better, and then there was this change, and now women are doing worse, and we'll talk more about that. But what I want to move to, and this is how the paper set out, is then I move into what we call a relative analysis. This is what I call the teacher pay gap, because it's regression adjusted analysis, which we go to as economists. It's just tried and true because the samples may fundamentally be different, and that affects wages. Like if you had a very young sample and then you had an older sample, you'd want to control for age because that's just fundamentally different, and that affects wages. So basically, this is what we talk about, the average weekly wage gap. This is, again, for females. So we see that we have regression adjusted early on. We see that what I call a premium. Teachers, female teachers in California had like a premium. They made more than other college grads in the state. So we went from a premium to what I call a growing penalty. And it's getting worse, and it's getting quickly at a quicker pace over time. So why is this happening? And basically the explanation here, which I talk a little bit more about in the paper, is this was a captive labor pool. If you went back to the 60s, like I did, the 70s, the 80s, and now here starting with the late 1970s, what you had is we didn't let women do very much. So the women who are teachers here in this first data point, they were educated in the 60s and the 70s. So if you had any education at all, we let you basically do 3 things. You were a teacher. If you were a woman, you were a teacher, you were a nurse, or you were in clerical work. So if you were a teacher here in California, you did relatively well compared to these other women. But then you see what happens is we hit the 0 line there, that red line or orange line, and that's when the pay was at parity between the 2 groups. And then female teachers started falling further and further and further behind, right? And why is that? It's because we start letting women get into colleges and universities, go into many different fields. They're opening up over these decades, being able to choose various careers as careers and other professions start opening up. Those are what we call opportunity costs for you folks who've had Econ 101. And they really matter here. That's what's embedded in here. To what now you get up to the last data point, and we've grown this eroding trend that where we have like a 19% percentage point pay gap between female teachers and other college grads. If we go and now look at men, I like to look at men choosing a career, we see that they've always made less than other college grads in the state. Male teachers compared to other males in the state now, only other males. And the other interesting thing about the average weekly wage, whether it's females or males, is when you see in the middle there, it's kind of flat. It's very flat. And like I said, these are inflation adjusted. So that's saying that teachers are just keeping up with inflation. And when you see a little bit of a dip, they're not even keeping up with inflation. You see the other college grads have a nice increasing trend. That means their standard of living, their actual standard of living, the basket of goods that they can buy from year to year is increasing. They're having standard of living increases. And that's not been the case on average for teachers in California for quite some time. So if we look at the regression adjusted pay gap that men face, we see a devastating picture that might explain a lot. But what we see are very large pay gaps. It started with about negative 20% early in this data. Again, I show this for the US going back to 1960s. The male teachers always had a pretty big negative pay gap. And now it's grown just enormously, almost a 35% ding on average if you become a teacher instead of choosing another career in the state. And of course, this is a big problem because we're starting to hear about the problems that well, we have for quite a while now about boys struggling in school. We're hearing that people are starting to say maybe we need more male teachers. We know that representation matters. But over this period of time in these data, again, not including pre-K or K, or the share of women would be even higher. But the share of men in elementary, middle, and secondary school over this period of time went from 38% in California to 30%. And I can only expect that it's going to get worse considering this trend. By the way, I don't have anything more to say about, I don't have slides on it, and that wasn't the point of this, but this is the same, this representation and why it matters also the same when it comes to race and ethnicity. In this data set, 64% of the teachers are white and non-Hispanic, non-Latino, while 20% of the students are non-Latino whites. On the other end, 56% of the students are Latino, but only about 1 in 5 teachers is in that category of being a Latino teacher. So we know that representation matters, but when you look at a picture like this, especially for male teachers, we will not be seeing this trend reverse anytime soon. It's just too big of a hill to climb. So if we put it all together, these are men and women together, all teachers in California, we see that basically this eroding trend, it wasn't so bad in the early part of the 80s and all through the 80s and the 90s, just a little bit of a ding. It's growing, and it's growing faster. And here, what this says is that for every dollar earned by college grads in California, the teachers earn 76 cents. So that's the big picture. That's the long-term trends. And I basically, in concluding, is just to say that I've always said, I've been saying for a long time, if you can go to the next slide, being a teacher is one of the most consequential professions in California, in the United States. It's not just for students and their families and entire communities, but the future of the U.S. workforce. I can't think of any more important profession that reaches so far. But the implications, of these penalties and what I've been showing now for over 20 years that really influences the teacher shortages, the retaining current teachers, the recruitment of future teachers into the profession. And here in California, I talk a little bit more about it in the paper. The high cost of living is a serious problem. Look, the complexity of these challenges calls for a massive coordinated effort, as we're talking about. I wrote a whole paper saying that the federal government needs to be more involved in financing public education all across the country, because now they're trying to shut it down, I guess. But right now, the sustained and significant efforts that we need to think about turning this around are nowhere in sight. And I have been having the same talking points for quite some time now. It's just that there's nothing more important. Again, it's not just for students and their families and their communities. It's for the whole of the country. And as was just said, California is one of the richest, if it were a country, richest countries in the world, let alone the United States. And I feel like that's why we need the federal government also to be involved, state and local governments. So I'll leave it there and we can move on. And if there are questions, we can get to them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Alegreto. As you say, this is not news to you. You've been covering this kind of devastation for a long time, this decades of disinvestment. And trust me, for union educators, this doesn't really come as news to us either. We feel it every day. And look, none of us enter this profession of public education expecting to become rich. We become teachers and counselors and school psychologists, bus drivers, because we believe in public education. And we love helping students learn and being a part of their life as they grow. But this gap that was just shown very clearly, and the financial strain on educators, particularly newer educators entering the profession, it's unsustainable. So I'd like to now introduce some of the union leaders around the state who could bring that passion into their work every day and are working together to protect and strengthen public education for our students. And as Dr. Alegreto is saying, we can't keep waiting. The time is now. And we're realizing, really, and these union leaders you'll hear are realizing that, frankly, we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And these stories they're going to share, and their shared commitment to really doing something about it is incredible. And so these are just a few of the leaders of the We Can't Wait campaign. And each one of them is going to touch on a shared statewide demand and also talk about why that demand is so critical in their local communities. So in this campaign, we have local struggles as part of also a broader statewide struggle. And we're going to start with Lauren Pomerantz, who's the president of the Live Oak Elementary Teachers Association. Thank you, Lauren.
Hello.
Lauren, you have your camera off, it looks like. I don't know if you're able to turn it on.
Hi.
There you go.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, all good. We're hearing you. All good.
Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Pomerantz, and I'm a first grade teacher, a parent of 3 students in Santa Cruz County, and a proud union president in the Live Oak School District. 23 years ago, I began my career with the Live Oak School District in Santa Cruz, California. I realized the importance of working in the community that I was raised in, despite the very real challenges facing educators living and working in one of the most expensive communities in the nation. The disparity in wages for educators has continued to grow in these past 2 decades. Studies year after year show that Santa Cruz is one of the least affordable areas for teachers in the United States. And the reality is that not one district in this county even pays the California statewide average. Santa Cruz teachers commit to the profession despite the struggle to work where they live. The sacrifices that educators are making are significant. Even with the extremely high cost of housing and the impact of inflation on our pocketbooks, educators dedicate their lives to the betterment of youth and without hesitation often use our own funds to buy classroom supplies for kids. To make matters worse, each year, Santa Cruz County teachers fight for meager salary increases only to face yearly increases in the cost of benefits. This year, educators had a 10% increase to the cost of healthcare in Santa Cruz County. Districts were used to provide affordable and high quality healthcare to teachers and their whole families. Now, educators in my district in Santa Cruz are limited to covering only themselves or else being forced to pay thousands of dollars a year to help their families be healthy. Like so many other educators across the state, Santa Cruz educators pay $1,200 to $1,500 or more in benefits per month out of our own pockets. In the We Can't Wait campaign, we realize we're not alone when it comes to these unsustainable conditions. We also realize we're not alone in the fight to fix them. We are a school district of 100 educators joining together with fellow educators in Los Angeles, San Diego, and throughout the Central Valley. It's incredible to feel the unity with our fellow educators across the state to win for public education and our students. Santa Cruz educators are tired of being told to wait by school district administrators and school boards. We can't wait to close the pay gap and fund public education the way that educators and students deserve. We can't wait to solve the financial crisis facing educators living in one of the costliest districts in the state. We can't wait for the state to step up to their duty to serve our students by reforming educational funding across the state. Our students deserve better, and we deserve to be compensated in a way that respects the work we have dedicated our lives to. I'm happy to be in this fight with educators from around the state, fighting together for competitive wages and benefits to recruit and retain the best educators for every student. We are stronger together. We can't wait. The time is now. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Lauren. So we hear this is not just the big, large urbans, although they're represented here. This is also places like Live Oak with 100 members who are standing strong as part of this campaign. Now, I do want to go to one of those bigger urban presidents, and that's Kyle Weinberg, who's a president of the San Diego Education Association.
Thanks, David, and so inspiring what you've shared, and Lauren and Sylvia about, yes, we have a crisis, but also a great opportunity here to come together and fight for what educators and students need. I'm the president of the San Diego Education Association, the union for more than 6,000 educators in San Diego Unified School District. I'm a special education teacher, and I've spent the last 15 years working in the highest need schools in our region. What Lauren shared about the experiences of educators in Santa Cruz resonates with me and my coworkers. Here in San Diego, educators also struggle to make ends meet in one of the most expensive cities in the country. And we see the direct and harmful impact that that has on our classrooms and our students, on our ability to staff our schools properly. In San Diego Unified, we have a staffing crisis, and it's worse in the places where our students need the support the most, like special education. A few examples at schools in Bird Rock Elementary. We have amazing special education teachers who are so far over caseload limits in our contract that they're struggling to provide the support that our students need and deserve. Every additional student on a special education teacher's caseload divides up our time and energy. And this undermines our ability to get students the help that they need to be successful and overcome significant obstacles. It also leads to unsafe classroom environments and educator injury and burnout. We can't afford to lose these educators, but the conditions are pushing them out of our schools. Something needs to change. The time is now. We can't wait. This staffing crisis is a vicious cycle. The vacancies overextend special education teachers who are stretching themselves thin to pick up the slack and support our highest need students. Those special education teachers are then more likely to quit when we're overwhelmed by student caseloads, especially when our pay is not enough to keep up with the rising cost of living in our city. And that only exacerbates the ongoing staffing shortages. My fellow special education teacher, Maisha Webb at Hoover High School, said it best, that all of these issues are interconnected. The vacant special education positions, how expensive housing is, and our pay. If we want to fully staff our schools, we need a living wage. So powerful. This is why this statewide effort is so important and why San Diego educators are all in. Developing our shared demands and now bargaining together, we're breaking down artificial barriers and joining forces to win the fully staffed schools that our students deserve. It's powerful to work with fellow union educators around the state, come together on common demands to address harmful staffing ratios, and realize that we're all ready to fight together for change. We know it won't be easy, but this is a big step towards building the power that we need to transform our schools and our communities. We can't wait for schools that are fully staffed so that our students have the support that they need to thrive.
Wow. Thank you, Kyle. And I just, in your stories about special ed and the conditions, I also hear just how our issues as educators and the disrespect and the low pay is directly also related to the disrespect and the lack of services for our students. And those two are connected in this campaign. I appreciate you articulating that so clearly. Next up, we have another amazing leader Kampala Taze Rancifer, who's the president of the Oakland Education Association. Kampala, take it away.
Thank you, President Goldberg. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Kampala Taze Rancifer. I am the president of the Oakland Education Association and first grade teacher at Encompass Academy. So here in Oakland, we're fighting to stabilize our schools. For many years, a systematic disinvestment in Oakland schools has really adversely impacted the quality and therefore enrollment in Oakland schools. The deep cuts and school closures have severely undermined our ability to provide quality to our students. So just last week, without any warning, without a school board vote, OUSD announced it would cut and close the elementary school within Sojourner Truth, which is a school that is our last online option for students and families. And we know that since the election of Donald Trump, attendance dropped for our English language learners who are new to this country. This online school can be a safe haven for students and a way for students to really continue to have access to quality education. Similarly, OUSD unilaterally cut our Skyline High School program, also targeting English language learners new to our country. We know that schools are the heart of our community. Cutting these programs only serve to harm our most vulnerable students. Cuts to our programs in Oakland have disproportionately impacted Black and Brown students, just as closures have for many years. Since 2004, over 20 schools have been closed in Oakland, primarily in schools with large populations of Black students. And we've been told it's to save money and improve quality. The irony here is that there's absolutely no evidence that school closures save money, as our county is threatening state takeover, and our district is in academic receivership. The solution to these issues is investment in schools. Persistent layoffs, cuts, school closures disproportionately harm our most vulnerable students and bring chaos, not quality, to our school communities. Oakland community joined this fight because we can't wait any longer to provide stability to our students. Oakland educators joined this fight because we can't wait any longer to create the stability that we need to improve outcomes for students. So that really concludes my remarks, but I'd like to close by sharing a video of educators from all across the state explaining the reason why we can't wait.
We can't wait. Our kids deserve better and they deserve it now. Watching them grow really changes you.
She's driving. She's 16. It just goes by so fast.
To watch someone learn to read, it's just like it's the most amazing thing in the world.
S-R-E-D. Our babies deserve a high quality public education, and it can only happen when we really invest in our staff.
Any given day, there are some school sites where students and families aren't sure if there's going to be a teacher in that classroom.
Educators cannot live where they work, and folks are being pushed out.
We know that the time is now, that we can't wait for politicians to save us, to provide adequate school staffing, stable schools for our students, and to close the educator wage gap.
This is not a place that you can cut.
We can't wait.
We can't wait. We can't wait.
The time is now.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Kampala. And thank you also for so clearly making the connection between both local struggles that each one of the locals involved will be taking on, like the ones you so clearly articulated, as well as the broader statewide struggle that it's also leading into. I really appreciate you. And we're going to have, just a reminder, these are just three incredible leaders today. But we have dozens of chapters who have spent the last year or two really building this campaign to get it to where it is today for the kickoff. And in fact, around the state today, in San Diego, Los Angeles, Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, and Sacramento, there are local educators who are going to be outlining their shared demands. Again, there's 32 chapters across the state, and we can connect you with educators from any districts on that list that will be sent to you after this press conference for local stories as well. And you can view more information about the campaign and sign up for updates at the We Can't Wait info as well. And we're going to have a slide that tells you where you can get information on that. And with that, let's see if there's any, we want to thank everyone for really participating in this. And
also, just really quick, David, we want to also introduce Volma Volsi, a parent from Sacramento as well, to be able to jump in.
Oh,
and share your
fantastic.
story.
Volma, I
Volma made it, yeah.
apologize.
Volma's here. You're all good. All good. Here you
Oh,
go.
great. So yeah, Volma, if you could we appreciate you being here, appreciate you articulating how this connecting of what happens with our students and with families is connected to our work as educators as well. Thank you.
Thank you, David and Rachel. Thank you all for having me be a part of this special press conference here. Again, my name is Volma Volsi. I'm a parent of a 9-year-old fourth grade student by the name of Josh, who attends H. Allen Hyde Elementary School in the Natomas Unified School District. That is like northern North Sacramento area. For Josh, though, I'll tell you, the teachers and all the educators on campus have been lifesavers for my kid personally. When you have a young kid, I remember dropping him off first grade, and the feeling just hasn't changed since dropping him off that first day. Like, it's always the same, knowing that you're dropping your kid off to a place where the people are responsible. You're dropping your kid to a place where they'll be cared for. You're dropping your kid to a place where they'll be educated. Is why I choose to have my kid in public school. I trust the teachers there, and the relationship with them has been tremendous. But it's tough to know that there is only one school counselor at my kid's school, though. In a school with more than about 800 students, it's tough to know if there's trouble on campus. There's really no one for my kid or any other kid to actually go to. Our teachers and staff go way above and beyond to make it work, but the resources just aren't there. And I can tell you that because I'm one of those parents who've been together with those teachers and school employees to do things like resource fairs, so we can bring resources to our kids, so we can bring resources to our teachers. We are at a point where we are having to apply for grants to make sure certain resources come to our schools. And those grants, we don't know if we're going to get them or not. They're very competitive. These are the things we are having to deal with. With all of the work they are doing for our student, it's very, very disturbing to me to know that teachers are paying more than $1,000 out of pocket every month for things like healthcare plans and their benefits. We're not taking care of our people. We're not taking care of our teachers. And what does that mean exactly? That means we're also not taking care of our children. That means we're not taking care of my kid, and that is disturbing. As the fifth largest economy in the world, all California students should have access to fully staffed and resourced public schools. That shouldn't be a discussion that we're having in 2025. And unfortunately, at the federal level, those like major threats, and with those threats coming, with those cuts coming, and with the Department of Education probably being eradicated on the federal level, I will ask us here and everyone in California to step up and do the right thing, because we are not able to wait anymore for our kids to get the education they deserve, for our teachers to have the resources they deserve, for our staff to have all the things that they need to make sure that they're providing the proper education, the resources to our children. A teacher living 40, 50 miles away from where they work is insane. That's the travel time. What that costs is astounding. I will do whatever it takes to support teachers in the fight to bring more resources to our school and invest in our staff, because it's what our children need. It's what my kid needs, because teachers have been there from the very start, and they've been here with me in partnership to make sure our kids get the education that they need while not having the resources to provide that education. So thank you all so much for having me, and I appreciate all the work you teachers do to provide an education for my kid and all those other kids, so we can have a greater and better future.
Thank you for such powerful words, Valmont, for reminding us that when we hear big studies and we see these big general themes, there's also individual students involved, like your own student, like your own family. It's a great reminder to us that we're not just fighting for the big common goods, we're also fighting one by one for students like yours who really deserve, who can't wait, frankly. And so I want to thank all of our panelists. And again, remind folks that there's actions all across California happening. San Diego, LA, Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, and Sacramento. And if you want any follow-up with any of these individual chapters, we can get you the information, as well as about the campaign, can give you updates on what's going on with the campaign throughout this exciting school year that we're going to be kicking off right now, this campaign today. With that, let's see if there's any questions from any of the folks on with us today.
We did get some great questions. So from Molly